via Google Meet public live stream, June 10th, 2020. Mission of the Community School District is to provide education that encourages continual progress with improvement of one's abilities, expansion of one's interest and knowledge, and the growth of one's character. Call to order, please. Joy, roll call.
Jim Barrett.
Here.
Linda Duncan.
Here.
Jeremy Lees. Rob Metzger.
Here.
And Tara Owen.
Here. All right, agenda approval. Are there any additions, changes, or corrections, Mr. Burnett?
None.
All right, then I entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Nice.
Please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to do the minutes approval, May 13th, 2020, the regular meeting. Motion to approve the regular minutes from the 14th.
I'll second.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the May 27th special meeting minutes. Motion to approve the special meeting minutes, May 27th.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the May 27th work session, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the May 27th work session.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. I see public forum, Jamie Meyer.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So I had Joy share with you guys a few documents. I apologize for the length of them. The first one that was shared with you should be the 7-12 course offerings for our students for the 2021 school year. We're asked to share this with you from the state because they always want us to look at equity, not only teachers, do we have enough male teachers, female teachers, but they want us to look at students and how they enroll in courses. So the first couple pages there are more junior high. You get to that third page, I always like to pinpoint math. And I don't want to talk about our standard course of math like geometry, algebra 1, algebra 2. I really want to focus your attention a little bit more on trig, pre-calc, calculus, and then our MCC stats classes, because typically those classes are the higher level classes, and those are taking place in students' fourth year. And in all four of those that I mentioned, we actually have higher female enrollment for the next school year than we do male enrollment. So we've had a little bit of shift from that. Typically, that's kind of a male-dominated area in math class. And unique to us next year, we will actually have 3 high school female math teachers. Erica Schultz, we'll have Elizabeth LaFollette, and we'll have Sarah Andrews. Jeremy Putman is our only 7-12 male teacher. So again, that's kind of a unique thing for us here. So girls are seeing our female teachers teaching math, hoping that kind of draws some more girls into those classes. I go into another area like business in our CTE, our Career and Tech Ed program. You see a pretty good mix in there of male and female students in classes like accounting, computer apps, intro to web design. When I look at science, our only area where I really see an imbalance is a class that's optional. It's physics. We tend to have more guys take physics than we do female. That's kind of a trend that we've had here for a while. Physics is almost a pseudo math class. A lot of upper level math has to kind of go on in a course like that. Our area that we probably struggle the most, I think, to get girls in general, and I would say that's probably a universal thing, not only in our AEA and our conference, but across the state, is our industrial tech classes. We have very few females that seem to get really excited about taking a woods class or a toy making class or doing advanced carpentry. Not that girls aren't out there in that field. We just seem to have a hard time getting them into those courseworks here. Our ag classes have a great balance. Again, with female and males, you see a lot of girls that do a lot of the, veterinary science kind of stuff. You get to see that with the ag related stuff that goes on. And then our last CTE class, FCS, which our students go over to Durant for, typically is a female heavy course load. We actually have more males going over to Durant to take our FCS classes, our foods classes, our intro to FCS classes. Any questions on that? Does that make sense to everyone? Ideally, the state would love it if I could say every class that we offer has 50% females and 50% males. It's just an unfortunate circumstance that we can't, force that or make that to happen. The next set of documents that Joy shared with you, typically this time of year, we go through our program evaluations. We have a few programs that we do every single year. Title I, Part A is one of them, and then both the professional developments that happen in both buildings. And then we have some programs that get on a 3-year cycle. So this year we have special education that's on its 3-year cycle. We have at-risk, which on its 3-year cycle. And then we have CTE, which is our career and technical ed classes. The first document you should have there is us looking at our Title I program. And all of these programs that we review, either annually or every 3 years, are programs that we get money from the state. So it's our role as a district to gather data and to make sure these programs are being effective for our students here. So kids that end up in a Title I program kind of fall in between the regular classroom, the universal information that they're getting in there maybe isn't meeting their needs in the reading area, but they're not significantly discrepant enough from their peers that they would meet special ed criteria. So they're going into a smaller group setting, they're getting focused on reading. And the thing I'd like to pinpoint is we typically have between 8 to 10 kids graduate every year or are released or exited from the program with that. It's a K-3 program of our students. So we typically serve anywhere between 25 and 30 kids. This year, I see we had 24 students that were in the program, but to have 8 kids out of those 24 that exit the program, that's actually a pretty good number. If you go on to the next two pages, this looks at our professional development that goes on at the elementary. Mrs. Austin and Mrs. Place do a great job with this. Some of the data does appear old on here, example being the ISASPA data, but that information was just released to us this fall, so it's applicable to what we have going on here with PD. The second piece you see on there are fast numbers, and you notice we don't have any data for the spring. What really I want to point out is actually on the second page there, when we look at our iBlock data, the students that go to their iBlock sessions between 3 to 4 times every week. To explain that chart to you a little bit, if you look there at kindergarten, the first cycle, we had 100% of the kids that actually were successful when they were tested at the end, that they passed out of that one. The number in the parentheses is the number of kids that would be considered at benchmark when the year starts. So when you look at those, you'll see 2 numbers in there. We want to see that second number, of course, grow higher as we move farther to the right, because that's us moving through the course of the year. The other part I like to look at is, while you notice that our numbers in that K2, 3, 4 area maybe aren't as high as we would like, when you look at 5th and 6th grade and you see in the 3rd cycle that we have 95 to 96% of our kids at benchmark, I think that shows that we're moving in the right direction. Yeah, it'd be great to have every one of those 100% at benchmark every time. But I think ideally when we want them to leave the elementary, we want them to be as close to 100% as we can have them. Along the way there. And the idea behind fax fluency is we want kids to be automatic with that. We don't want them to be using their fingers. We're hoping they're not using calculators, because that tends to slow down the process when they have to use their critical thinking skills if they're spending so much time working on adding and subtracting, and they're having to use fingers or different types of strategies that slow them down. The next 2 pages are the junior high program evaluations. Again, you see the ISASPA data there a little bit. I kind of want to draw your eye more a little bit to our AIW. We'll be going into year 3 next year with AIW. And the Townsends have helped us spend a significant amount of money improving instruction. We spent the first part of last year working on tasks, which are things that kids are being asked to do in the room. If you want to break that down, it's like homework. Next year, we're going to roll into instruction. Teachers are going to actually teach themselves instructing. And then in our small groups, we'll have the pods of teachers will be viewing that. And AIW is set up so it's based off of a rubric. A score of 1 is the least desirable, a score of 3 is the best, and it has certain criteria that we want to meet. Part of that process is myself, Mr. Snavely, Mrs. Hewitt, and Mrs. Pearson. We did what was called a SIP walkthrough, which stands for the Classroom Implementation Profile. And you can see there, when you look at that first column, the number of questions that were asked that were higher order thinking. There were 17 during all of our visits. That grew to 42. So we're already making progress with people starting to do things different in their classrooms. The responses are students-based. The statements are a little bit confusing to me. I don't know that we all have a great grasp on what that is. But when you look at depth of knowledge and student understanding, what we're trying to get kids to do is to understand the topic, but get it to be conceptual. And I would frame for you things today like the riots that are happening and the Black Lives Matter movement and how that fits in with what kids understand and know about those things compared to knowing something like when Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. I have to know that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I know why he sailed or what it was about him sailing. So the conceptual side of that, when you look at the fall score of 23% compared to 35, kids are being able to explain to us now. We have to ask the question, what are you learning? We're hoping they can get into a little bit more depth instead of just saying, hey, I learned Columbus sailed the ocean in 1492. Substantive conversation is how are kids learning from each other? So when a teacher asks a higher order question, can kids keep a conversation going? Can they build on each other's knowledge and can they benefit from each other's knowledge? And then value beyond school is how can they apply it outside of school? Does it make sense to them outside of school? The next 2 programs there deal with our special education. And we look at those indicators of performance and we look at kind of in the middle of the pages there, we look at how teachers, the students and their goals. And if they're above the trend line, are they moving towards their target or are they below the trend line? And you can see for the most part, we're at 80% in the 712 building and 85% in the high school building. So kids are making progress towards their IEP goals with the staff. The next 2 pages are our at-risk. So this would be all of our guidance staff from Jane Owens to Dory Smith in the elementary to Pete Dutchaver and Mark Patterson and Sarah Downs at the high school level. The elementary level, they do a lot of stuff with ISASPA, but they do a lot of stuff with intervention block. Their MTSS referrals is probably a big part of this from an at-risk, and then the chronic absenteeism piece is a big one. Last year, they had 12 students in the elementary in our shortened year that went through the MTSS process. And the MTSS process is a multi-tiered system of support. This is a teacher that's struggling to figure out why this student is struggling in their classroom. Then a group of teachers get together and they try to analyze and maybe offer suggestions for them. Of those 12 kids, we had 8 kids that were involved in a tier 3. A lot of times that's like a one-on-one of extra emphasis in some kind of academic area. The big area that happens on both of these is, and I don't know if this is just a Wilton thing or not, but we have a high number of students here that have chronic absenteeism. And that's defined by state as being absent 10% school days, whether they're excused or not. So we have right around 180 school days. If a kid misses 18 days of school or more, they're chronically absent. Well, the data would tell you that if you're not here at school, it's hard to learn. And it's a problem that grows as kids get older. When they get into the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade years, we start to see kids that have 30, 35, 40% chronic absenteeism. So our guidance staff, I think, is starting to do a better job with when parents have kids not at school and they're starting to reach out to parents to figure out why, stressing that we got to get kids at school. We need them to be here and we need to figure out those barriers as to why they're not here. If you miss a third of a school year, you're missing like 60 days of school. A quarter of school is only 45 days. That's a lot. And we look at that from a futuristic standpoint. If seniors are missing, 45, 50% of the school year, how does that translate to a job? Will an employer allow you to miss that kind of work and still want you to be at their work and still feel like they're getting value out of you? The last report, and then I'll stop talking, I apologize, is our Perkins, our CTE, the career and tech ed. So that looks at industrial tech, that looks at business, that looks at family, consumer, and science, and that looks at our ag. And the state has changed how they collect the data here. Now, if you look at the chart there in the middle of that, you see the number of kids that are enrolled in some kind of class in each of those. The concentrators are kids that have earned at least 1.5 credits in those. And then we get completers. And they've taken a sequence of 3 classes. And you'll notice we seem to have a good group of kids that are in that ag area. We seem to have a lot of students that leave here with some kind of ag desire to go to that post-secondary work, whether they're going to Muscatine Community College, Kirkwood Community College, or Iowa State, or seem to be kind of the big 3 that happen. Family consumer science is just a little bit of a struggle just because of the way that we share that with Durant. We can't offer quite as many courses as we could if that was in-house here. Same thing with business. You don't get quite as many of those. So next year, our 3-year review will involve TAG and then mentoring and induction, or TLC program. So I will stop talking. Are there any general questions about any of those? I'd be happy to go over any kind of information or data that's present on those. I take silence as a good thing.
Yes.
Well, perfect. I appreciate you guys letting me pop in tonight and kind of review those with you.
Great information, Jamie. Thank you.
You bet. Happy to help.
Jamie, do you want to say anything about Return to Learn while we have you here and things that we're working on since we talked at our work session?
I will tell you it's a lot less muddier than it used to be for us. We've met administratively here in the district. We meet every Tuesday. I do think the teachers have put in some pretty good input. We had some time with them the last few days. So Mrs. Austin, Mr. Snavely have kind of gone through all of that feedback, and we've started to formalize and kind of whittle that down just a little bit. We're going to meet with Durant June 25th. We want to make sure the high schools are pretty seamless when we share kids. We can't be running on a block schedule, and they're preferring to go to an 8-period day if we go to remote learning. So we'll be meeting with them on the 25th. We hope to kind of learn from each other. I've spent some time today and yesterday. I've been investigating different states and what their return to learn plans are. And I will tell you from what I have found in the states that surround us, they're still pretty muddy as well. Nobody's really come up with anything concrete. It seems weird to say school's 2 months away, and in a normal year, that's not very far away. But so much has changed in 2 months here from COVID first kind of hitting and us, dismissing school and not being here from March 16th till the end of the year. So I do feel a lot better about where we're heading. We've got some hand sanitizers that have been installed in the building now, so all the classrooms will have that. Mrs. Hartley, I meet with her tomorrow, so we'll be able to talk a little bit about health and wellness, not only of students and staff, but parents and visitors and volunteers. We probably won't be allowing them in the building at least the initial part of the year, to just try to mitigate who's in and who's out of the building. Joe Raggets is working with I think it's Tom, right, Mr. Burnett? Wiesenberg. About cleaning products, making sure his staff has their PPEs when they're cleaning. Terry Dinkman's had input in here what lunch could look like, from using disposable plates, increasing sanitation, from getting rid of the old ketchup, the squeeze bottles that were down there, and the pickle, things like that. So just a lot of little things to think about that. It seems like when you ask a question, you've got 7 more questions that come up. And when you answer something, it seems like more questions as well with that. But I do feel a lot better where we're at, as a district with our planning. So.
Well, thanks for your work, Jamie. It's been a crazy run, and it's going to be
It'll be crazy till we're back.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Jamie?
Thanks, Jamie.
All right, we'll move on to business financial functions. Ms. Stacy.
Upload number 6 is the taxation fund reports. We notice in the general fund, so we have 1 month left of the fiscal year. June 30th ends our fiscal year. And most of those items are in the 90s or 100% for revenues. The low one would be miscellaneous income, and that's because we just sent out open enrollment bills for the second semester, and special ed bills will still be forthcoming, so that's why that percentage is lower. And then if you look at that compared to the expenditures at the bottom, a lot of those are in the 70s, especially the salaries and benefits, and that's because we'll pay off all the summer contracts in June. So we'll have a regular payroll in June, and then we'll pay off school year contracts for July and August on June 30th. So that's why that's offset there. And I don't really have anything else to point out regarding taxation funds. We will have expenditures for the building project in the month of June. So I see those start coming in. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, upload number 7 would be the instructional support levy program. So I make sure that this is all spent by June 30th in the fiscal year, which you can see of our almost 410,000, we've already spent 300 and almost 355, so we have about 55 left to spend. And the MCC bill alone for the second semester will take care of the rest of that money, just about. So that will be all spent by the end of June. Any questions or comments on ISP? And then upload number 8 is our self-insurance fund. So the revenue for the medical insurance is still sitting in general fund. That gets put into this account before the end of the fiscal year, but we put dental and vision premiums in because we're totally self-funded on those. Put those in monthly. You can see the fund breakdown between medical, dental, and vision in the lower left-hand corner. So we continue to do well with this program. Any questions or comments? Load number 9 would be our Latchkey program. So the Latchkey program started on Friday, May 29th, since the shutdown. So that's why you would see the summer program there at the top where she had 10. They just did it under casual since it was 1 day for the month of May. So she had 10 come that day, but I believe since that day, this last week and a half, there's been around 30 students per day, somewhere in that neighborhood. So, fortunately for the program, it had a healthy balance going into the shutdown. So we should still be financially good by the end of the fiscal year, even in spite of being shut down for 2.5 months. And the next upload after that would be how money was spent in the month of May in the Latchkey program, anything that's not payroll related. So we did have a couple of participants who had prepaid some services and had asked for refunds. You see a couple of those. And then she did spend several $100s on cleaning supplies to prepare to open, all the sanitizers and that sort of thing. So any questions or comments on Latchkey? Upload number 11 would be nutrition fund. So we had no month totals for May for the regular school year program, of course. And then the second page, if you look at the financials, you see that in the month of May for the summer food service program, which they started when we started that program in April, they called that the summer food service program. And so for the month of April, we received almost $31,000 in revenue for that program for the meals that were served. And see that her balance has actually grown, or the nutrition fund balance has actually grown due to the summer food service program, but also In June, there'll be 3 payrolls to pay off all the cook contracts. So that will be a large expense compared to the monthly. And then the next upload after that would be how nutrition fund spent their money in the month of May in addition to payroll. And most of it is the summer program food. So if something was the food and regular non-food items that would be for the program were coded to the summer food service program. If they're all the specialty items that she's ordering to do all the carryouts, because if we were having a regular summer food service program, kids would be coming in here and eating, and we wouldn't be doing all the carryouts. So there's a COVID code, which they coded 0019 for COVID-19 that we code all of those to so we could keep track of things that had to be bought because of COVID-19. So those would be in the expenditures there. And then upload number 13 would be the utilization of the FDA program, which they're still calling the summer program, for the number of children who use the program, number of families, and then total meals at the bottom. So any questions on any of the nutrition fund? And upload number 14. So like I've mentioned prior, before the end of June, I work with Joy and we make sure that we have no negative accounts ending the year. So as I've mentioned numerous times before, the elementary vocal gets zeroed out by the junior senior high vocal. And industrial arts, I believe Mr. Kelly completed the shed that was sold himself since he had no students to help him. And that should be picked up this month. So that would be actually get out of the red and be in black for the end of the fiscal year. And the FFA, whatever they're in the hole at the end of June, will have to be consumed by transfer from the farm account. And then down below, we have the spring and summer canteen. So we did not have spring canteen and we will not have summer canteen. So the spring canteen is $841 in the hole because there were items left from winter canteen that we always pass over to the next canteen and have them held. So Joy and I just talked today that we'll need to talk to Terry to see if there's any of those items that could be used by nutrition fund program or how exactly we're going to deal with that. And then to get both of those zeroed out, it will have to come out of fair canteen. And there will be no fair canteen this year either. So, then going to the second page, you have the FFA enterprise. You can see that the farm account itself is in financially good shape. And the animal accounts are, several of them are in the red because they just bought animals for the fairs that are now not happening. But still, the kids are going out to the farm and working with them. And then our flex spending account that we keep in-house, and then the custodial funds, where we do the accounting for groups that are associated with the school, but we do not technically own the money. And those accounts should not ever run in the red. So, any questions about any of those? And then there'd be period vendor reports with upload number 15 regarding each of those funds to see how their money was spent during the month of May. And of course, at the end of the school year, under the custodial funds, the Chromebook deposits, if the seniors graduating, if they don't owe money to the school for anything and haven't consumed any of the Chromebook deposit, they get their deposit back. Any questions or comments? Anything activity fund, FFA, or custodial? Then there's extra payroll report for June 19th. So we normally do not have the summer meal program, and all the associates and cooks that were working in that program through the official last day of school of, the 29th, 28th, I believe it was. They did not get paid anything extra to work that, but then starting on, June 1st, those that worked are getting paid a rate that we set for the summer workers. And that's really the only unusual thing in the June extra payroll. Any questions or comments about an extra payroll for June 19th? And then board bills for taxation funds are upload number 17. So I believe there were about 9 pages of general fund bills. They're getting back to normal now. Couple small months and seems to be picking up again. So through the top of page 10, you have your general fund expenditures. Then we have local option sales and service tax, or the SAVE account now as it's called, from Fund 33. And Fund 34, which is where we deposited the Townsend donation for the building project, have some expenditures for the architects and our financial, Piper Sandler Financial Group, working on our bonds. And then actually it's technically July 1st in the debt service fund, we have revenue bond payments, but they have to come out of this fiscal year for a July 1 payment. Any questions about any of the taxation fund bills presented for payment?
My group, Stacy.
No, unless there's any other questions or comments for Stacy, I'd entertain a motion for payment of the bills.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Stacy. All right, we are going to go to administrative reports, and we will go with Mrs. Austin first, please.
Multitasking.
Can the camera make that angle?
I think so. I don't know. Truly, before I really started my report, though, I want to clarify something that Jamie said about that chronic absenteeism, because we worked really hard on that. Actually, the elementary number is very good. 10%, if you miss 10% of the time, you're considered chronically absent. And the goal from the state is to have less than 10% of your people absent more than 10% of the time. So we actually, with those 35 kids, that's not even low, it's about 6% of our kids. So we're well below that. And our at-risk people, Ms. Owens and Ms. Dory, have worked really hard on that, individually and with families. So actually, that's a point of pride for us in the elementary. And this year, it's skewed a little bit because we didn't have any days to be absent from March to the end of the year. So when you're counting a percentage, if kids were sick or took vacations and were gone for a week, we had several kids of that 35 number whose parents took them on a week vacation, not during spring break, of course, but during a time when it was counted absent. So they didn't have the rest of the year to balance that percent out, if that makes sense. So we were able to identify about 8 kids off that list that, assuming they didn't get really sick the end of the year, wouldn't even have been counted in that. So that put our number down to about 3 or 4%. So we're really proud of our attendance rate in elementary. So I just wanted to clarify that because that's kind of confusing. Elementary handbook, I did not make many changes, even though in reality, I think there's a lot of changes that will have to be made with COVID. So at the on the cover, you can see I wrote subject to additions due to COVID-19 updates, because there are things in this handbook, for instance, our visitors policy, that we're going to possibly completely change. Yet my hope would be that we go back to this, and I didn't want to replace it yet because I don't know exactly what it is. So that's why we're kind of going by a standard handbook for you to approve tonight. I did delete the absences and attendance policy under absences and attendance, recognizing perfect attendance. That has been kind of a nice point of pride for us, Linda, and your t-shirts.
I know, and it's like, why?
But the DE did come out, and it's understandable now, kind of with a recommendation that we not do school-wide recognition for that. So I have taken that out. Soliciting on school property, I just deleted applied economics because it's not even a course name, and we allow all school classes to send sales things home or sell outside of the elementary. Activity sign-up forms, I clarified on our new practice, that page 5 of what we're at, we kind of, again, made it align with what we're doing, with the biggest change being money not coming in for outside places through the elementary. And we've talked about that several times. Illegal items, we added delivery systems based on when Pete reviewed our handbook, because that's something now that we need to make sure we have covered in our handbook. And then the only other changes I made are dates, the additions of dates. Any questions on the handbook? Summer Academy, we've talked about this several times. We've invited 112 kids. We've got Ryan and I met. I think he's going to need 2 buses to pick up 24 kids just simply because of the time element and how spread out they are. I'm really happy with the addition of our social emotional learning component. We've worked pretty hard to get that streamlined. It's going to be a really great opportunity with this 112 kids, or however many end up coming, to practice in a small number, what changes we'll need to put in place when we get them all in, hopefully get them all in here. We're working on that we will be able to social distance, minimizing those shared spaces. We're not going out to recess. We won't go to the restroom at the same time. We're staggering arrival entry. We're increasing our cleaning and all those things the biggest point of Summer Academy is the academic piece, but this year it will serve a great practice field for us. Points of pride, actually Jamie hit most of those for me. So the math, the biggest thing I guess I would speak to in math is the amount of teachers who implemented number talks, which is talking to the kids about math, and more of the conceptual thing has nothing to do with their lesson. It's just completely understanding number sense outside of their lessons. And math workshop, meaning the teacher's not up front talking, which is going to struggle a little bit with our social distancing, but it's small groups with instruction based on what they need. And the teacher rotating through with our practice to a small group at the table with her. That will look different depending on what our social distancing rules will be in the fall. Other than that, any questions? Everything else on my report's pretty self-explanatory.
All right, any questions or comments for Denise? No, we will move on. Thank you, Denise. Mr. Snaker.
Can you hear me? I'm out in the boondocks back here. Can you guys hear me?
Hang on, I gotta get you on.
You get to turn that on?
You want to sit here, Mark? I'll switch you.
That's all right.
Oh,
Well, depends if you can get me on.
Derek says he can hear you.
There's.
Can you see him, Derek? Most importantly, can you see him? Oh, he's
Can I hear you?
He's muted.
I can hear him. Press the other Zoom button. You got him almost on camera, Denise.
I can slide my table too, if that helps.
There you go. That button.
I'm just trying to stay away from.
Keep pressing it.
From Tim.
Keep pressing. Keep pressing. Keep pressing.
It was on my neck.
Keep going.
That's all, Tim.
Just keep going. Can you turn it a little more to the central office? Or stop right there. I can see Mark.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. As far as my board report, I just want to start off senior awards night. We had writing here as scheduled on Wednesday, May 13th. It was a little less formal, obviously, with not being in the gym and not having everybody present and graduates here. But it went really well. We were able to get the information out. We had a few presenters that came in and presented that night, and we had a whole bunch of them that just gave us their stuff, and we presented for them. So it was nice to be able to do something with that and just throw it into a graduation program or something like that. So So that went well. I just want to note, we did have our CT advisory meeting. The Department of Ed and the ADA recommended that we do that this year virtually, so we did. Normally, we have that like the last day of school and we have a lot of people in this room. And this year, we just invited a very small group, and we did it through Google Meet, and it was very, very interactive with our business partners. We had some students attend. I had each CTE teacher invite 2 business partners and 2 students. And so we had most of those people show up, and it was very productive, and glad we were able to get that in as well. Our summer Edgenuity program, which is our credit recovery for students that fail classes, that's going to start on Monday of next week. We have 11 students enrolled right now that we're hoping we can get them to recover a class or 2 to move forward and be on track to graduate. So that's set up, ready to go. I'm not going to hit everything on my board report, but I know the board last year, I think specifically it was Rob, asked me to do a survey with students that students would do about the teacher, much like they do at the college level, at the end of the year or at the end of a term. And I wanted to let you know I didn't forget about that. It was on my list of things to do, but I just thought with only 50 or 60% of our students online and the whole pandemic and the whole learning environment, I didn't think we were going to get good data from that. So I'll add that back to my list and we'll do it at the end of the first semester and I'll share that with you. But again, I just didn't want to blow anything up that you asked me to do and just want to give some reasoning behind it. So the last 2 things have given me a lot of gray hair since April. I'm going to be honest with you, I can't tell you how many hours I put into the last 2, and I want to update you because what you're going to see on the board report is not accurate because I submitted this last week. So prom is the first one. We did opt to cancel prom today. So that's been kind of a work in progress. I've been in close contact with the Muscatine Department of Public Health, and with the 6-foot social distancing guidelines, we can't have a dance, and they really advise us not to have a prom. I can't tell you a school in the state that's actually having a prom right now. So I think what's happening is there's independent groups, like at Wilton, it's a post-prom committee. They're doing some things for the kids off-site, and that's what I'm seeing across the state. So we did cancel today. I've worked with the post-prom committee to kind of help them a little bit with their organization and mainly pushing out information. I'm not part of that. And so in the email that I sent parents, I made it clear that the post-prom committee is not affiliated with the school and that they are planning something at the community center on July 5th. But I also put kind of a disclaimer to, the same guidelines should be in place for that as a school. So just, trying to make that clear that they are offering this and it's not affiliated with the school, because we have had people call us and ask us for details and we simply aren't part of that planning process. So anyway, that was emailed out to all the parents today. It was put on social media. It should be pretty clear on that moving forward. So that was a good thing to kind of get finalized and people can make their plans and move forward. So I also knew that the post-prom was doing this a couple weeks ago, so it makes sense just to cancel because we can't have a school prom and then that going on, and that just makes a messy situation. So anyway, I think everybody's good with that decision. Graduation, we discussed that at a work session. I don't even know when that was, but we talked about it and we put some options out there, and I've been in contact with the Department of Public Health, and having it in the gym with everybody is not allowed. I mean, it was point blank, that's not allowed. And I can tell you, I've also not seen that from any school. I've watched many graduation ceremonies, and all I've seen so far is a drive up or one at a time coming into the gym and doing it that way. So anyway, what we decided to do today, I met with our class officers, and we are going to move the venue to the football field. Okay, July 12th at 2 o'clock. Now with that, there are some risks involved with that. And the risk is weather, okay? So we have to have it at that time and that date because families have already started to plan graduation parties around that. So we will have it then at that time. The venue is going to be the football field. And I just made it clear today when I talked to class officers, we're gonna try to make it as special as we can for them. And I think it's going to be a really nice ceremony if the weather will cooperate. We can do basically everything that we can do in the gym. The only thing we can't do is show video. So when we show the senior video, we'll have the music playing, but we'll have people pull out their phones. And it'll be a live stream. Bo and Justin will be up in the press box and live stream as well. And other than that, we'll be able to play audio but not video. So we'll have to not have partners walk in 6 foot apart. We'll have to have a rehearsal. We're going to have that rehearsal at noon and keep people out till 1 and walk through all that so they know the procedure. And we'll make it look as real as we can. But we're not going to be able to bring everybody into the gym. The guidelines just aren't going to allow that. So basically, everybody was good with that plan today. And late this afternoon, we sent out a survey. So the graduation plan at the football field, that venue is set, we're in good shape. The problem is if we can't have it at that time and that day because of weather. So we'll gut through heat. We will gut through a little bit of rain, but we can't gut through a downpour like yesterday, and we can't gut through lightning and those kinds of safety things. So I sent a survey out today, and in that survey, actually Bo sent it out, and he put that the venue is going to be the football field. He did a really nice job with that graphic. And then we asked 2 questions, and we are collecting data on that as we sit here tonight. And the 2 questions are, if we can't go to the football field, the backup plan will be the Wilton class of 2020 only, formal ceremony live streamed in the auditorium. So we can get 50 people spread out 6 foot apart. We can't, I tried to map it out with just having a student and their parents, and I could get to about 35 pods. So that doesn't work. So that's our backup plan, option number 1. The second one is doing like Iowa City did, where they bring 1 student in at a time, and the immediate family comes in, they take a picture, and then they go out to the football field and take pictures, or whatever they want to do. I can tell you right now, there's 16 responses, and the parent responses are 50-50 on those 2 options. The student responses, and again, there's only 16 responses in so far, the student responses are 75% just with their class in the auditorium, with streamed online, and 25% of the parents are on that situation. So I knew that we were going to have a split between our students and our parents. Okay, but I also outlined these risks when we talked about this at the last board meeting about if we don't do the drive-through and we wait this thing out, there's a chance that we're not going to be able to do what we wanted to in the first place. So I hope I was very clear on that. But I guess I have my fingers crossed and hoping we can do the July 12th at the football field, because it is going to be, the backup is not going to be good for everyone, because parents are not going to want to be left out. But yet the students the whole time have said we want a formal ceremony with our whole class together. I'm very thankful they were able to do their parade and be all together that day. I think that helps the situation. And they were when I talked to students today, they were very understanding. They know, but we can't control the weather, so that's where we're at. So if you guys have input on that, that'll be great, but at some point we're gonna have to decide that. And hopefully, I like to make decisions based on data, not just on my gut. So that's why we sent that survey today. So any questions about my board report, and then I'll get into the handbook changes. Any questions about graduation? Hopefully I'm transparent with that. Ron?
Thank you very much for all the extra work you and those involved with you have done, because it's a constantly changing thing, obviously, and hard to plan for.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that, Tara. The last thing I'm gonna add is, I watched the governor, I watched her speech today, and it looks like on Friday, there's gonna be businesses opening up. Now, that doesn't drive graduation, so remember, the governor's office and the Department of Ed they're not gonna give guidance on graduation. So when we ask for guidance from the Department of Ed, they don't recognize that even as something that we need to do, okay? So they don't give us guidance. The only guidance they give us is to consult with our Department of Public Health. So that's what we have to do. So if everything opens up and things change, we still need to kind of consult with our Department of Public Health as far as what they guide us to do. So I just wanted to put that out as a little disclaimer that we don't have a lot of guidance from anybody on graduation other than that entity. So anything else? Okay, handbook changes. I'm just going to go through, I put them all in red, and I'm going to go through them really quick and entertain questions at the end if you have them.
Where is it? I don't have it.
At the back.
Oh, it's at the back?
In the back.
Wait a second for you.
Upload number 26.
Oh, I found the elementary now. Oh, it doesn't say, it just says
Upload number 26.
mission statement.
It starts at the top of the mission statement. We just don't have the cover on it like we do.
That's where I'm like,
Once it gets approved, we put a cover and we
Yep.
develop a table of
all
contents.
right,
So,
yeah, 26, okay.
everybody ready? Yep. Okay, on page 10, we added language about blankets. And believe it or not, we had some issues this year with students suddenly showing up at school
What?
wrapped in blankets and walking around the hallway. So we stopped that and asked them to get rid of those, which we didn't have any issues with. But we did add it to our handbook. So
Any issues with Snuggies?
Wow.
again, this is kind of a
Snugglies.
sanitary issue with dragging on the ground
Well,
and
what the
those kind of things. So
What a code.
we just thought it'd be better to throw a sweatshirt on or
Yeah.
something like that. So anyway, that's new language.
That is improved.
Just a note here on page 11. Perfect attendance. I know Mrs. Austin talked and she removed hers. I did not remove perfect attendance, but I did want to note it. Like Mrs. Austin, there's going to be things that are going to change because of COVID-19. If we start the school year and we go normal all year long, I have no reason to not recognize perfect attendance. I mean, that's a given. But if we have to go to any kind of hybrid learning or online learning, then yes, we're going to just scrap that. So I noted that in my handbook, and I think that's important to know too. So he did recommend that. So on page 11, to better, we've talked a little bit about attendance tonight. And we are over that 10%. So to better address attendance, when it talks about doctor's notes, it says in there that it may be a possibility that we ask for a doctor's note. We just changed that to is. And we are going to ask for doctor's notes for extended periods of time, because we really do need to get to the root of why is a student absent? Why have they missed 35 days of school? Is it a health issue? Is it something that's happening at school that we need to address? Whatever it is. So we don't have a lot of issues with those extended periods of time, but we want to have the authority to be able to just be able to address those issues. And I guess be a little bit uniform with what we're already doing. Page 13, the tardies. We got rid of it says in there that we'll send home blue sheets if a student has X number of tardies. We don't necessarily do that. The thing that we've started to do is if a student has 5 unexcused tardies, we give them either a before school lunch detention or after school detention. And in the book, it says we may give detentions. Well, this past year, we've absolutely given every student has 5 absences, we've carried that out. So we got rid of that may language again and basically put will in, and that's consistent with what we've been doing. And most of those happen right away in the morning because they're just late for school. It's not at the late in the middle of the day necessarily. It's usually morning stuff. On page 14, I added a whole bunch of language about senior open block. And we really felt like we needed to kind of open up opportunities for our seniors a little bit. And we've had a group of seniors that don't have the 2.75 GPA, and they're not proficient in the ISASQA or the ALEKS test down at the college or whatever it is, where they're not able to take an MCC class. So when they get to be a senior, especially the second semester, we're sticking them into classes that they don't really fit in or don't really like to take. And in a lot of cases, these are kids that are going to go into the workforce, and they could be off working or doing some kind of a job shadow or an internship or something like that. So it's not a big group of kids, because a lot of our kids are taking the MCC classes, or they actually need to be here because they're behind on credits or they're just on course to graduate. It's more the student that's doing okay, that we just can't find a class for them to take that's going to be beneficial to them. And so that's why we added that in there. They can already have one open block, but we're allowing them to have a couple open blocks as outlined there if they meet the requirements. And they have to be passing their classes and all that kind of stuff. So it's really for a small group, like I said, but I think it'll help a few kids out. And then page 23, backpacks. We've worked extremely hard over the last, at least my 3 years here, to get backpacks out of classrooms. And a lot of that is safety. And a lot of it's just, they end up on the floor and people trip over them. So we've worked really hard to make that not an issue. Well, now we really feel like when we met at the end of the school year and we talked about the return to learn plan, that we may need to open that up a little bit, because I think, there's a chance we may not even use lockers next year. We may want students to actually carry their books on their backpack. So we can, when they come out of their classroom, we can direct traffic to get them to the next class and not have them doing that. So we just added in that, that backpacks are not approved unless prior approved by administration, okay? And we do have a couple students that are on a 504 plan that have physical ailments. They'll be allowed to carry backpacks anyway. So it's really not a huge thing, but I'm just protecting us a little bit. So if we do have to open that up, it's in the language. And then page 29, you're gonna see a whole bunch of red. Believe it or not, we do not have a common grading system at home. So in our BLT meetings, we came up with a common grading scale. So I put it in there. That was a huge push to make sure that we have the same percentages that factor into our JMC calculation rate. So right now it's set by teachers and their syllabus. Now I'm asking you to approve it in the handbook so we can get that into structure in the fall when the teachers come out. So the BLT's been, they developed this and it's their language and teachers have been very much on board with that. So they're the ones that asked for it. So just know that it's not just a Mr. Snavely decision like this. On page 31, silver cords have been a really good thing that NHS has rolled out. We have 3 seniors that are going to be getting them at graduation this year. And I can't tell you how many emails I've answered in the last month from parents and students. And it's on our website. So when I have to pre-approve everything. So when I get that, I have to approve it. But lots of times parents and students are asking questions and I have to direct them to the website, which I do. And lots of times I'll just, just send a PDF of the form, the documentation form, but I also want to direct them to the site because it has all the requirements and things like that. So I added the main language from what's on our Silver Cords website to the handbook. So it's just easier to have it in multiple places. So that way I'm speaking the language. Right now it's Mr. Bean speaking the language, but we'll have it in our handbook and things like that. So I've answered a lot of questions this summer about students that are doing work over the summer. And we're hoping we can really grow that from 3 this year to double digits in the future. And so I'll hit that really hard in the fall when I meet with students on the first day of school and point them to the handbook and really talk more about that too. So students have been doing a good job. There hasn't really been anything I haven't approved. They've been doing a good job picking things that are productive, and I think they've had a good experience, and it's certainly something that we need to keep pushing. Page 34, I noticed that bowling wasn't an activity that we share with Durant, so I added that. I noticed that Mr. Hudson also added that to his athletic handbook, so it's in both areas. I think everybody knows that they can do bowling, but I just noticed that last year that wasn't added. It's probably forgotten the year before or whatever, so that's just how that sometimes works. On page 35, robotics is now going to be shared with Durant. We've had only a couple students in the past be interested, and I don't even know if we have anybody next year, so we thought it might give us a little more mileage to actually share that robotics class, because they have it during their school day, and their club is separate, but we thought we might be able to actually get more students involved if we collaborate with them. Plus, it's a huge financial expense. If you only have 1 or 2 students, it's kind of tough to fund that. So I added that in there, and that is it. So minor things, but at the same time, they're, as years go by, things come up and just feel like you need to make a few tweaks. So any questions about any of those changes or additions or things like that?
No, looks good.
All right, thank you.
Did you want to talk about the activities?
There's baseball, softball coming up.
I mean, we can read it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Snavely. We will move on
All right.
to consent agenda number 1, which there's nothing.
I know.
Darn. All right, consent agenda 2, which is policy, our most favorite.
Yes, the only one I have a recommendation for a change on is a couple years ago, we went to something called public surplus, which is how we sell equipment that we no longer use, okay? In the past, prior to that, if we were to sell something over $5,000, we would actually take bids and it would go in front of the board. Because we have that ability now through the public surplus, which is considered a auction, if you will, we don't do that. So on that 803.1, I'm recommending that we just strike that last paragraph. That's all.
Right, because we don't do it anymore.
Yeah,
Let's
we
get
use the
rid of
public
things that-
surplus auction site, so that's really the reason reason that was in there in years past is if something was over $5,000, everyone had a fair chance to bid on it or whatnot, so. Anyway, that's the only one I have changes on that I'd recommend. But I'd certainly answer questions over any of the other ones. One of these is a little bit outdated, but could certainly still happen. So I say this jinxing us, but I'm going to say it anyway, but bomb threats have kind of gone away since everyone has caller ID now. And it's tough to find a payphone.
Their cell phones, yeah, their home
Just-
phones, yeah. Yeah, true.
But boy, in the late 90s, bomb threats were a lot more common.
And on our last day of senior year, we had to spend the afternoon in the grade school gym.
Forgot.
So we could just go star 67 and call them back. Hello. Who is this? So that's it. That's all I have.
Motion to approve consent agenda number 2, striking the last paragraph of 803.1.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Consent agenda number 3.
Yes, letter A is the 2021 activity fees. No changes as far as monetary amounts. Well, there's one tweak, but as far as what your activity passes are, 10 punch passes, individual sports passes, single season events, nothing there. What we did update to reflect current practice, or just to make clear on how we have our practice, what we're doing. Under Roman numeral number 4, letter B, you can see in the red there that K6 vocal concerts are no charge. The 712 vocal and grades 5-12 band concerts, you can see it's 3 and 1. That's to reflect the junior high athletic event charge there, the 3 and 1. That's where we came up with that number. Roman numeral number 5, it just lays out clearly, what activity passes can and can't be used for. Not honored at the old school plays or Stepperette spring shows, and obviously the state-sponsored athletic events and activities. The state seems to think they deserve that money.
Of course.
But that's it under the activity fees. Are there specific questions about that? Letter B are the student registration fees. Absolutely no changes on there, correct, Stacy?
Correct.
So it's the same. Letter C is the preschool student parent handbook. Ann did not point out anything specifically to me as far as a change. Stacy or Denise, is there anything that she wanted to have pointed out?
Ashley and Nikki,
This is
preschool,
preschool.
Preschool, excuse me,
Yeah, preschool.
exact
preschool,
same, no changes. From
no
the prior year.
changes. Yeah, sorry, I was,
Again, subject to change with COVID changes, but not.
yeah, all of our handbooks tonight are assuming we have school in a normal fashion. So, nope, preschool, not latchkey. Letter D is the elementary student parent handbook, as Mrs. Austin talked about. And letter E is the junior senior high student parent handbook, as Mr. Snavely talked about. Letter F, Mr. Snavely might be able to answer some questions about that if there are any, in terms of the athletic handbook.
All I saw was a little bit of red on the facilities use, just tweaking that a little bit. There was not hardly anything in it. Like the number of times that outside agencies could rent. That's all I saw from revenue.
All right, letter G, I'll let Stacy talk about that. That's our AMC insurance renewal. It comes up each year.
But before I do that, I have a question for Mrs. Austin on her activity sign-up forms. Your last sentence says, the sponsor will need to arrange to routinely collect the forms money from the secure box. I thought we made an arrangement that someone from your office was going to get the money out of the secure box.
It depends on who the person is, because if they're from outside of here and they want to come at 5 o'clock at night, that's why I said they have to make the arrangements. If they can come get it during the school day, we'll get it for them. But if we need to collect it and leave it there so they can come pick it up, see, we worked on that wording. Want to say something different?
Well, money should not be left in that box overnight ever, because that's money that's owned by the school and it should be secured in an office, whether it's our office or your office.
Which means an outside person would have to come pick it up during the day, during our hours.
Or make arrangements to come pick it up from
So
us.
you want me to change that?
Well, that's money that's owned by the school, and if it's sitting in a box, sitting outside in the hallway, if something happens to it, we eat it.
Well, it's not left in the box at night because everything comes in and they sort
Well,
it.
it says
Just
they
say
have to
this
make
much in the
arrangements.
box.
How let me read the
It's the
sentence.
box you guys.
The sponsor will need to arrange to routinely collect the forms, money from the secured box. So see, if they're coming during the day, they can get it from the office. If they're coming,
That's what I'm saying, that makes it sound like stuff's left in that box, and I thought that was our agreement, that we weren't gonna
It's
leave
not.
stuff in that box.
right,
Debbie Maroff goes through that box daily,
Right.
right? Takes out all the money.
But right there it says from the
I
secure
know.
box, that's why I wanna make sure.
I know,
Because
I
we
can
own that
change
money,
it.
and if money gets taken, we're responsible for it, we eat it. So I don't know exactly,
It's located right under the camera. They'd have to take the whole thing with them, which we would see if it was taken. They can't get
and
into this
how
lot.
do they get in that secure box if nobody's here?
Well, I think that's where we'd have to give them the key.
Or again,
Right.
then going through, and then that's the other thing we talked about is then if there's other stuff in there, they're going through other people's money, and that's what we wanted to avoid too.
So what do you want me to make it read? We'll need to arrange to,
But it should
how
be-
about need to arrange to collect the forms money, period. Just get rid of from the secured box. Does
Right,
that work?
sure.
Yeah, because it may
All
be,
right?
yeah, that way it's more general.
Yeah.
Okay, so just collected.
And then if there are multiple things in there, or we have to leave it somewhere else. Perfect. Then we'll make that change. Thank you, Stacy.
So going to the EMC, so that's upload number 28. So our insurance runs through White Pigeon, but it's through Employees Mutual, which is the largest insurer of school districts in the Midwest. And the main thing for the board to see is I moved page 7 to the second page of the upload, and it's the summary. So if you want to go look at pages 1 through 6, you can see all the detail. But our insurance went up, and I was warned that it would. The primary reason, so you can see the comparison from the current year to the premium renewals for next year, which we'll pay in July if this is approved. But our property, they increased the value of our property coverage by $826,000. And $650,000 of that is adding the sports complex. We did not pay $650,000 for that sports complex. We had a lot of in-house work, volunteers. I tried to get it insured for $450,000, which is a little bit more than even what we have in it, and they wanted to insure it for $850,000. So I said, no, we're not insuring it for $850,000, and so I got it down to $650,000, and that's as low as they would go. They said if that building was knocked down, that's how much they think it would cost us to replace it if everything was done by contractors. So that is a huge chunk of the property. You see our property coverage went up, almost $9,000. So it's largely due to the sports complex, and then the pool building itself. They felt that we had that building underinsured, even though it's having a lot of structural issues. They felt that we had the pool building underinsured, so the other, whatever would be left of that, $176,000, is attributable to them increasing the value of the pool. Then work comp, of course, our payroll goes up every year, and we do an estimate based on the current year's payroll. So work comp's going up because of an increase of about $350,000 that we're estimating in payroll costs for work comp. But also our experience modifier went up from 1.25 to 1.34, and that's based on the last 4 years. So I know we get some crazy work comp claims here for a school district. So that went up due to that also. And then the changes in our auto premiums, you can see that went up $2,000, but when we got our new bus in last July, after the first of the year after our premiums, they don't actually make that change till the next year. So that would be insuring our new bus and deleting our old bus is a big factor for that. Plus there was also auto premium changes, which included increases for that. And then above this, we'll still get a renewal for earthquake flood that the board has approved in the past when I presented that, and cyber liability. And we're still working on our equipment breakdown, and I should have some renewals for those by our special meeting on the 24th. But this would be our property liability, auto, which would include vans, cars, and buses, our crime, employee dishonesty, work comp, linebacker, umbrella, group umbrella, and pollution liability. So, and all of the, this cost comes out of our management fund. So a pretty hefty increase there, but that's the summary. And then, you know, if you want to look at the detail by each section, Nancy from White Pigeon has that on the next 6 pages. But like I said, if this is approved, then you'll see the invoice for it at our July meeting. Any questions on the EMC renewal?
How many vehicles do we have? And I'm not buses. I just mean like
Now Joy keeps track of
Vans,
that.
cars.
vans, cars.
About 10 vehicles.
And that would
Vans and
be
cars,
vans
yeah.
and cars.
And we've got 3 trucks too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's probably a dozen at least. And sometimes that's not enough.
Before you make a motion, can I talk about the athletic handbook? What do you think?
Sure, and there's still drivers that to go on too, but yeah.
Just whenever you're ready, let me know something doesn't.
Well, are there any more questions for the insurance?
Yeah.
With Stacy?
Do we, as far as the work comp portion of it, is there any big injuries that are going to fall off or any that have happened that's going to help with the cost of work comp? Or is most of that, $7,000 part of the pay raise that we gave?
A lot of it is the pay raise, but part of it is experience, not a factor. But in the last 4 years, we did have one claim that was fairly large, and that's only probably 2 years old. So that'll be 2 more years before that one falls off.
Good.
Otherwise, I think there's only one fairly large claim within the last 4 years.
It's a big increase.
And then they'll do an audit of our work comp after the certified annual report is done. Every September, they do an audit, and if we paid more than we should have based on actual payroll, we'll get a credit or a bill if we didn't pay enough. So they do reconcile that at the end of every year.
So, and we're trying to encourage the nurse on call instead of just sending them to the doctor.
Yeah,
And that'll help.
they have a program for work comp called Nurse on Call that they're supposed to call and get advice from a nurse if they need to go to the doctor or not, and not just our office telling them, okay, you have a claim, go to the doctor. The thing is getting people to use it, and Joy and I just spoke about that the other day, about reminding all of our staff when we come back to school in August about using that Nurse on Call.
Do you have a preferred doctor that you use outside of the building? Or are
Generally,
Or are they
Yeah,
allowed
generally,
to if they want to?
no, we generally send them to our local provider, and if they don't want to see them across the street, they'll send them to urgent care in Muscatine, that's Unity Point.
Actually, it's
so it's a-
occupational medicine now.
Occupational med now. Okay, Joy just told me it's occupational med. Joy does our work comp claims.
Yes. So it's, send them to occupational med down by the hospital in Muscatine.
What kind of relationship do you have with those folks?
We don't personally.
No.
No.
That's where the workers' comp prefers them to go.
And
Okay.
actually, we used to use the local, and they actually asked us to quit sending them there to Unity Point.
Because I know as far as like, depending upon somebody like your nurse or somebody, if they become, I'm not asking for a personal relationship, just so that they understand, so they can get the information to and from. So instead of a work comp claim turning into weeks and weeks and weeks, you can get the claim narrowed down, which helps your DART score and also your MOD score over time.
Right. Most of our claims are claims that people don't even go to the doctor, but we do have some, and we have very, very few claims that have lost time work.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Stacy. Shall we go to Mark?
Yeah, Mr. Snavely, did you want to add something about the athletic?
You asked me about it, and I didn't have it pulled up, and honestly, I haven't seen it before tonight, but I'll tell you what the two changes are. On the facility requests, for the outdoor facility, or whatever it is, the gyms, it used to be that we could reserve it for an hour and a half increments, and I know Mr. Hessler changed it to 1 hour slots now, just I think to give people more opportunity. And then weekends, it's still at the hour and a half like it was before. And then no team can exceed 2.5 hours per week. It was previously at 3 hours per week. So I had to look back at the two, and that's the difference. And then the bullet down there where it says school cancellation procedure, basically it says all facilities will be closed for school cancellations and early dismissals due to inclement weather unless otherwise noted by activities director, principal, or superintendent. I'll tell you where that's coming from. In the past, let's say we have an ice storm and we clear the building out at 1 o'clock and then we don't allow practices. Previously, what would happen would be our high school and junior high can't practice, but then our little kids come in and practice.
Yeah.
That makes everybody upset. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's wrong. I mean, if we're gonna let out for school because of safety,
Mhm.
and then everybody needs to be gone. Brian is, he obviously caught on that right away too, and that's where that change came up. So it gives, that language he adds and gives us the authority to kind of do what's smart and what's reasonable at the time. And of course, we're gonna consult with our superintendent in those situations, so that's added to that too. But it just gives us some leeway to make decisions on safety and weather. So that's where the two things are coming
Because
from.
we've had that issue with the pool, wondering too, hey, we get, but then it's fine. Well, should we open or do? And I think we've gone with, we go by the school. If the school cancels, whatever, we can't, everybody can come open swim just because now there's no ice. So, good.
But anyway, those are the two. I'm sorry I didn't have that right away.
No, that's okay. All right, And we just have the driver's ed agreement.
Yep, our standard, or not standard, but our annual agreement, with Mississippi Venda AA for driver's ed. And Mr. Snavely, I think, knows more about than I do, but this year they're doing all virtually, correct?
Yeah, Mrs. Hewitt, bless her heart, she has lots of patience. She's doing it virtually for a couple hours a day in her classroom, and then the driving is, they have a couple different people driving, and they're doing that right now too, so, yeah, she's a great person to have, because there's a lot of changes coming from the DOT, and she's doing a really good job at that, so. There's like 27, I think, students in it.
Because I heard somebody commenting that they were doing what driver's ed was starting, and I wondered how that was working. I didn't ask the parent, but it's like, good.
No, they really loosened the reins on that this
Well,
particular spring, so.
we all have to kind of go flow. All right, so that is consent agenda number 3.
I move to approve consent agenda number 3.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Yeah, we have
Individual
4
consent.
individual action items. Stacy can talk about this more in depth, but basically it's our audit services provided by K. Chapman. We have to have that board approved, and that'd be for the next 3 years. And the reason it's fiscal year 20, remember it's always a year behind. Next school year is fiscal year 21, but when she comes here next fall, she's auditing fiscal year 20. Okay, so I don't know if any of you looked at that and thought that looked a little funny, but that's why it's for fiscal year 20, when the reality is our fiscal year ends here in about 3 weeks. Stacey, you want to add anything?
Now she has her prices there for the 3 years, so.
All right, so we just need an individual motion for that.
I'll make a motion to approve audit service provided by Kate Chapman.
Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, B.
Stacey can talk about this one. That's the fiscal year 20 gas piece, number 75, actuarial requirements.
So we're required by the state to do this GASB 75 report that has to be done by an actuary. It's for post-employment benefits. So in the state of Iowa, we're required to allow retirees to stay on our insurance till they're 65. So basically what they do is they gather information from me, how many retirees we have on insurance, what options they have, what they pay, that sort of thing. And they have to do a report basically that our auditor uses for the audit, saying how the retiree insurance benefits have affected our entire group. We currently only have 7 retirees on our medical, lots on dental and vision, but they only look at the medical. And this is a report that's required by the state that only gets used for the audit, so. And I recommend Silverstone Group because it's obviously cheaper than Iowa School of Finance, so.
You can see it's $3,600 for the Silverstone Group and $4,425 for Iowa School Finance.
To approve the Silverstone bid for $600.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, C. Oh, copier bids.
Yeah, replace the large main copiers in elementary and high school workrooms.
And this actual purchase would not be till after July 1st.
So it'll be in fiscal year 21's budget. You can see the 2 bids, one from Konica Minolta and Sharp, and the recommendation is for Konica Minolta. You can see the difference there between 18.9 and 25.9. Well, actually almost 19,000 to almost 26,000.
And the Konica Minoltas are what we already have, so put right into our fleet,
Good. You already know how to work them.
right?
Good deal.
Motion to approve the copy of bids from Konica Minolta.
I'll second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, lastly.
Lastly, we need to approve the 2080, or just our sharing agreement. It's not really a 2080, it's just a sharing agreement with Durant for the HR position that we are starting in July. As you can see under the hirings, Ms. Lana Moeller has accepted the position. She's currently the SBO at the Bennett School District. She has 15 years of central office experience in Stacy's role and Lisa Kephardt's role next door. So she is an outstanding candidate. I'm very pleased to say that she accepted the job, because to find someone with her experience, it's tough to do. We had a couple options. We, didn't know if she would be under contract in Wilton or Durant. It really doesn't matter because we split it 50-50. It's just a matter if you're a Wilton employee or a Durant employee. And based upon Wilton's benefits package and Durant's benefits packages and whatnot, the total cost was going to be the same for each district. Whether Lana signed a contract in Wilton or Durant, one had a better insurance package, one had more money in their package. So it was like, hey, what do you want? Would you want more money or would you want better benefits? So in this particular case, our benefits were a little bit better. But again, she could have had more money if she went next door. So it's not, total cost was the same. But she chose to be a Wilton employee based upon her needs. So you can see the sharing agreement there. It's for 1 year, everything's split 50-50 in the cost. It's very similar to the shared superintendent, shared transportation director, etc. But the reason we waited to get this approved tonight along with the hiring is because we didn't know which schools contract she would choose. She will start sometime in July, and the reason we say we don't have a specific date, be no later than the last week of July, is because in negotiating with her, she didn't want to leave Bennett, looking for an SBO with the new fiscal school year starting July 1st, which is 3 weeks from now. So
with this share, will she be like yourself, days here, or how's?
very similar to mine.
Okay.
Half the day in one district and the other half the day in the other. Yep. She's actually, where Mr. Meyer's office is now, that's where she's going to be, and you can see we've added a small office on the north side here of the media center. So Mr. Meyer's going to be in that small office that Joe Raggets built.
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion for the shared human resources director between Wilton and Durant.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, now, information discussion items.
You bet. You can see our 3 hirings there. The first one being Joe Gephardt, 7 through 12 social studies teacher. He's also going to be the academic team advisor. Mr. Gephardt filled in for Mr. Lee this spring during his long-term absence. Well, actually, during his retirement, he technically retired. Number 2 is Brandon Van Zandt, assistant varsity baseball. That was numbers pending and quite honestly, season pending. So that's why his contract's in front of you now. And then number 3 is Lana Moeller as the shared human resources director. That's it under the hirings. Under the maintenance, of course, they're really doing well and moving forward with things. The biggest challenge in working with the maintenance this summer is getting ready for the fall and just being as prepared as we can be for the guidelines as far as cleanliness with the COVID-19 recommendations. So Joe's been working with the staff on that. Is there anything pool board related?
Well, we had a meeting last night, and then we were just talking about today, since the governor has all swimming pools can now be open. And I already know that we have a request for a pool party, private pool party
Right.
for Saturday night. So Stephanie has kind of put it out there for us to do, so we'll have to get together and see what she wants to do, but right now, everything was going really well with signing up for lap swim, and swimming lessons have been gangbusters. She says she's gotten filled, and we'll do another session in July, so that is good, because of course, May, we had 0, and, 0. So that's good. Now, how she's gonna handle it, whatever, we'll have to talk, but it's been lifted, so we'll see what,
Be interesting.
yeah.
No, I was
So
just
that's
thinking the
what we're
same
working on.
thing. I mean, with the pool opening up, with, our latchkey opening up here recently, the number of kids going to that, and baseball and softball starting up, and,
It's,
we'll have our summer school at the end of July.
but we do need to, we'll have to have a discussion and figure out what we'll do with that, but it's, so far, so good, and she's gotten, like I said, a lot of responses, and yeah, everything's going well.
Good. All right. I don't have anything legislatively. Actually, they're finishing up things right now out there. So I haven't heard anything good, bad, or indifferent. When I think of the Goodwill Committee, I think about our back-to-school teacher tailgate. Let's hope we have school and football and volleyball and cross-country so we can do that.
Yes.
Do you want to mention something else?
Well, I just saw the schedule for the football games next year. I didn't
We
know.
got a tough district.
I know,
Tough.
and what our third game is our first home game, right? Where the first two are away and the second one is home, so it won't be real early, but yeah. Cool.
So, yep. But otherwise, we'll have a special meeting to pay the bills. We always have a second meeting. It's a special meeting in June every year to pay the bills for the end of the fiscal year. Then we'll have a work session after that. And then our next regular board meeting is July 8th. So
Time keeps marching on.
that's right. Remember our special meetings, we tend to have food at those in the work sessions.
Yes.
I can't offer anything virtually, so you must be present to
Might
partake.
be an incentive. I know, poor Jeremy.
I know, Jeremy, it's not your fault.
I know. All right, is there anything else? If not, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
You're quiet.
That's okay, you can second me.
I second.
All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good
Thanks for the
evening.
great camera work, DA.
Good work, Bo.
Have a good night, guys.
Yep.
Bye, thank you.
I did.
Always has to be something.
We're gonna get this all figured out.
And then we
And then
don't
we
have
won't
to
need
do
it.
that. That's okay though. That, you know what, that is okay.
You know what? We should set this up like this every time because if someone can't make it, or let's say you've got, I don't know, let's say you don't feel 100%, or you're out of town for something.